Welcome back to the Talking Sports Traders podcast, episode number
5 now.
5, nice one. And we are being a bit consistent as well. We had an episode last week, which was well received, and we promised we'd have one out this week, and we managed to grind one out, haven't we, so far?
We have.
So we're super happy. Bit of a strange episode, this one. We've got a few different things which we're going to be discussing. Loads of different topics, loads of different sports, so it's not just based on something specific exactly. So what can we expect to be chatting about, Pete?
Well, we've got F1 season. We're going to touch on the NFL draft as well, because it's quite a novel idea for a lot of European sports fans.
Yep.
Tyson Fury fight.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then obviously just a little recap from last week's action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a few tips up, weren't as lucky as what we have been. Some came fairly close though, and there'll be even more tips going up this week as well, so that'll be exciting for everyone to keep an eye out. I think only one place to start with, probably, if we start with the football and sort of everything that's happened recently. We're filming this on a Thursday. So we just had the Liverpool United game.
Yep, that was on Tuesday.
Yeah, so Liverpool won that 4-0. Quite an embarrassing show, really, from United, wasn't it?
Yeah, just to be expected, though, at this point. And that was on the back of, obviously, Liverpool beating City in the FA Cup.
Yeah, and we had interesting news come out today as well, that United's new manager now has now been appointed.
Yeah, official.
Is he going to take over now, or will that be the end of the season?
Yeah, it'll be the end of the season. I mean, Ajax are still fighting for the league title. They lost in their cup final to PSV,
right?
And I think they're only 4 points clear at the top with 5 games to go. So
interesting.
He's still got quite a lot to fight for. It's not like a done and dusted, coronation for the last stretch. Every game's going to be must win for them now.
Definitely. There was a bit of talk as well regarding the United managerial role in terms of who was going to take over, because there was Ten Hag, there was also Pochettino.
Yep.
Think it's the right choice?
Well, I think either of those two were going to be a fine appointment. It's quite low risk. Both would get the fans excited. But it just seems it's a bit of a cycle at United.
Yeah.
He'll come in, the fans will say, it's going to be great, they're going to get rid of all the dead wood.
And it's a lot of dead wood as well.
And it's the same. He'll bring in, he'll freshen things up, and he might freshen things up, but there's a lot of dead wood, like I said. You can't just get rid of 12, 15 players in one window. I know there's a lot of people that are out of contract, so that's gonna help. They're not going to have to sell these players. So the likes of Pogba, who a lot of fans think causes problems in the dressing room, there's going to be no issues. He's going to play his last game for United. But then you've got people like Martial, whose contract isn't up yet.
Yeah, he's
not done very well at Sevilla. Who's going to want him? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot. Everyone's calling for Maguire's head, but hopefully Ten Hag can get the best out of him, because it must be frustrating for United fans watching the likes of Maguire, Shaw, Pogba turn in world-class performances when they play for their international team. Yeah. And then as soon as they go back to the United, they just look completely different.
I think that's the big argument that a lot of people have, is because, like sort of say Maguire, for example, a lot of people say that he's just not a good defender. But he's not bad for England. In that formation and in that system that Gareth Southgate wants to play, he does what he needs to do. Fair enough, there's been a couple of mistakes in the past, but I think that's just natural from any player. Definitely not as many as what he's had at United. And even the same with the likes of Luke Shaw as well. So you have to feel sorry. We've got Jesse Lingard as another example.
Yeah, well, he's out of contract, so
exactly. And he had a fantastic season at West Ham season before. Got back to United, and I think he played last couple of games recently.
He came on as a sub during midweek.
Yeah,
but yeah, like you were saying with the international thing. I mean, it's weird as an England fan watching this season, and watching how bad Maguire has been, and yet for me, if I was to pick an England side for a game tomorrow, it would be Maguire and Stones as the centre-back pairing, without any question. Yeah. So it's quite odd to watch what's going on.
It's a strange one. If we touch on Liverpool, they did go top of the league briefly, but then City managed to pull out a win.
Yeah, quite a lethargic win for City.
It was a dodgy first half. but second half they sort of pulled it away. A couple of lucky goals, but I think overall they probably deserved the result.
Yeah. I mean, Mahrez' goal was especially... I've not seen a goal like that in ages.
Yeah.
I mean, I think De Bruyne was running with it. He got tackled, bounced off a Brighton player, hit another Brighton player, bounced into the path of Mahrez. He then got tackled.
As he was taking the shot as well.
It then bounced back into his path. He shot and it was deflected and went in. I mean, you can't write that stuff. You'd be frustrated as a Brighton defender for sure.
100%. I think sometimes if the game's going your way, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But it's good though. It keeps City's title hopes alive, which is obviously a good thing for you. You'll be happy with that.
But Liverpool's quadruple.
Yeah, the quadruple is still on. How realistic is it?
Well, you'd feel like they're going to get to the Champions League final.
The draw's been kind, I think.
Yeah.
Well, maybe past the draw, the results have been kind. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, to get to a Champions League final is hard.
Yeah.
Even if you beat the easier teams, you've still got to get there. You've still got to get out your group. You've still got to put in the performances. You've got to go to hostile places. But I mean, they've got Everton at the weekend. It's at Anfield. Obviously, it's a derby. Anything can happen. But in current form, it should be another walkover. Really.
Yeah. Do you think it could be a Liverpool City final? I think we touched on this last episode.
I mean, you wouldn't back against it, would you?
No.
I mean, it would probably be odds on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it is odds on.
Yeah. From a neutral point of view, if I had to decide what I would rather Liverpool win, I'd rather they won the Champions League than they won the Premier League.
Yeah.
Only because the Champions League, when they won it last time, they celebrated for a bit, but then you never really heard it much after that. But when they won the Premier League, that was a different story. I mean, they still talk about that now, and that is slightly frustrating. So I think if I was to choose, that's the way I'd go. League Cup final as well. There's an FA Cup final as well. I think they've got a really good chance of winning that, especially the way they're playing. Yeah,
to lift the trophy, they're 1-2. So, but you just never know. Like Chelsea, they just churn out trophies. Even when they're playing bad, they just always seem to end the season with at least one trophy.
Yeah.
And now they're out the Champions League. They lost on penalties in the League Cup. They're not going to win the Premier League. It just seems like it's just one of those seasons where it'll just fall and Chelsea will win the FA Cup, just not even being that great.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from. I guess you could relate to probably the Champions League final when they won that as well. It wasn't their best
both seasons
performance.
They had bad performances in the league. And both times they sack the manager halfway through the season, and the new manager comes and gets them in the Champions League.
Yeah,
But that's for another time. If
exactly.
it goes a few months away, Salah might get injured, Mane might get injured.
But that's the other problem as well. Is Liverpool do consistently sort of play the same 11 for most games. So there is that higher chance of an injury risk, I guess.
I think you have to say though, their recruitment over the past 2 years has been really impressive.
Yeah. Well, if we look at recently, the likes of Diaz, for example, he's made a fantastic impact on that.
I never, in a million years, and I'm happy to eat my heart, I never expected Jota to be as good as he is.
Yeah, I agree.
Jota is an absolute. He's just fantastic.
I said the same with Salah.
Absolutely fantastic.
When Salah joined, I didn't think he was going to be much of an impact, only because of what I'd seen him in previously at Chelsea. But I mean, he's been the best player in the world at the time.
And now there's no problem with their midfield. They can rotate the midfield, and there's not really a drop off.
Yeah.
Signing the new centre back this year as well.
Yeah.
It's fine, even though he's not really playing in the league.
Yeah.
He scored in 2 successive games in the Champions League for them against Benfica. Yeah. Now the squad seems a lot more balanced, and it looks like they're going to sign the Fulham youngster as well. Who, when I was back,
Carvalho.
Yeah. I saw him. He scored a goal against City, and he was really impressive.
Yeah, he scored. I think he scored one of the goals because obviously, for those who don't know, Fulham are now promoted into the Premier League, so they will be in the Premier League next season. And Carvalho's been arguably one of their better players this year, and he scored a goal which sent them up the other day actually, and it was a fantastic individual goal. No, he'll be a fantastic signing, I think, for Liverpool too. Another sort of exciting news, transfer talk, that type of stuff. We have Haaland to City.
Well, yeah, it looks. I mean, nothing's been confirmed yet, but it seems like that's going to happen.
Makes sense, you think?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Think he'll suit the Pep system? Do you reckon it's a Pep signing, or do you think it's a it's higher than Pep. This. Do you think this is an owner's signing?
No, because the club is built for Pep.
You reckon?
Yeah. Everything. The whole setup was made for Pep. If Pep was going to leave, I don't know what would happen in terms of the transfers. But for me, this signals that Pep is going to stay for at least another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's part of our bargaining chip in transfers now is we've got our ace up our sleeve, and that if we're neck and neck for another club, with another club for a player, we can just say, oh, but you get to work under Guardiola. And it seems like the universal agreement between players is that they all want to play under Guardiola if they get the chance.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be a great signing. It definitely brings a different sort of philosophy to the type of striker we've seen at Man City over the last few years. Obviously, we had the likes of Aguero, who's more like an agile player, quite small, right place, right time. Even with Jesus, a little bit similar, nice, skillful player. You haven't really, for a while, I haven't seen that sort of big presence of a striker.
No. But Guardiola has worked with Zlatan, and he worked with Lewandowski as well. So I have no worries that
he'll fit him in.
Yeah, and obviously he was a City fan growing up. His dad played for us, so it just feels right.
What a team City will be on FIFA, by the way, next year if there's Haaland. I mean, that is impressive. We moving on. We touched on Fulham being promoted. I think it's probably, we saw that coming for a while now. They did slip up against Derby, where they could have, winning that game, they would have gone up, and they lost 2-1. Mitrovic has now got 40 goals in the season. 40 goals.
Astronomical, yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, that's more goals than some teams have scored.
Doesn't surprise me.
It's I think there's 3 teams that haven't even scored 40 goals. And he's gone ahead and done it on his own. A lot of people saying that it's the service and all that stuff, but when you actually look at some of the goals he's scoring, that he's doing well to get where he is.
Yeah, for sure. You've still got to score the goals.
Absolutely. And then the question begs is, if you're a Fulham fan and you're in the Premier League next season, is Mitrovic the guy you think is gonna keep you up, or do you invest in another striker now?
Well, you maybe take another striker, but Carvalho's gone.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to, if you're going to keep the same system, you're going to have to get a left winger or
someone
like a wee nimble attacking player.
Yeah.
So that is going to be a more pressing demand than getting a new striker. So I think they'll be in the market for a new winger or small skillful player rather than a big striker. So definitely. I think they will be sticking with Mitrovic. And he has actually scored a few goals in the Premier League. He's not like a complete flop.
No.
It's the same with Pukki, Pukki, he scores all those goals in the Championship, and then he usually chips in with about 10, which is, I mean, it's not amazing, but a lot of teams would be really happy with a striker who's going to score them 10 a season, no questions asked.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it looks like sort of Bournemouth or Huddersfield will probably take that second spot. And then the rest of the spots of the playoffs is really open still. I mean, Middlesbrough let themselves down. They lost to Huddersfield the other night. Forest got themselves a big win.
After a loss to Luton.
Exactly. They're looking really good. Luton as well, looking good. It's going to be a tight one, I think. I think it's going to come down to the last game of the season.
Yeah, I can see that.
100%. At the other end of the table, Derby now relegated.
Yeah.
As a Middlesbrough fan, it's hard to feel sorry for Derby based on the whole financial issues that we had with them. However, I do feel a bit of sympathy for them, especially I think I'm feeling a bit of sympathy for Wayne Rooney as well.
Yeah.
They gave it a really good go, considering they had a points reduction, etc., and the players he was working with. Do you see them coming back up?
I think so. I think there'll be a reset, and a positive note for Derby fans is that we've seen it with 3 teams who are now real established Premier League teams who have got a really nice model to follow. Well, Leicester, Southampton and Wolves, they all dropped down into League One. City did as well, but this was a while ago now, in the early 2000s. But with those 3 clubs, they all had to go right down to League One before the reset started. Yeah. And now no one would argue with you and say, if you said Leicester, Wolves and Southampton are well-run clubs, of course they are.
Yeah.
But they all had that little reset. They went to League One, and I think there was a few back-to-back promotions. I think Wolves did back-to-back, and I think Southampton did back-to-back as well.
Right.
Not 100% sure, but I think they did. So yeah, there's some positive. Sometimes you need a reset.
Fulham are very much the team who have just gone down, gone up, gone down, gone up over the last sort of 5-6 years.
Yeah, and Norwich and Watford.
Norwich
looks like they're going down.
Exactly. So that's interesting. Another thing that talk about Premier League as well, so, really quickly because we have a lot to go through. Burnley got rid of Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
You surprised by that?
I am surprised. Yeah.
Do you think something might have happened maybe behind the scenes?
Possibly. I don't think so though.
He was there for what, 10 years?
10 years.
It's a long time to just get rid of somebody. I mean, surely with the team and the players he has, they have a great chance of coming back up if they did get relegated. And let's remind ourselves, they're not even relegated yet.
No, I think they owe a lot to Dyche as well, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes next.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think he'll take some time. He's not going to jump into a job now. He'll wait till after the end of the season.
Definitely.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think his level will be Championship, though. I don't think a Premier League team's going to go for him.
Do you know who the favourite is to take over?
No.
Chris Wilder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was favourite. I think he dropped it again, but then he was interviewed the other day, and he just didn't like deflect it or anything. He was just like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, as Borough fans, we're like, no, don't do that to us. We've had Pulis, Warnock, like some absolute shite over the last few years, and we started playing some half decent football at times. So I hope he doesn't go. If he does, I think he'll do a great job there anyway. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think football wise, anything else?
Yeah, I've just got a shout out to my local team,
which is
Warrington Town FC.
Right,
they've secured a playoff spot.
What league's this in then?
They are 2 promotions off of the conference.
Oh right, wow.
So if they get promoted this season, it's a big point in a football team's history.
Right.
Is they would be on Football Manager.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow.
So I'm hoping.
So you can play Football Manager.
Of course, they'll definitely start a season with them. But they're a big team in the league. They are. This is the 3rd year in a row they've got to the playoffs. 2 years ago they got to the final. They lost to Kings Lynn. This year, it looks like they're going to finish 4th, so they're going to have a home semi-final. Though they're not 2 legs in the playoffs, so they would have a home leg if they win, and then obviously they would have to play either the team that finished 3rd or 5th, depending on who won.
Yep.
So they could have 2 home games to get out the league. So fingers crossed.
Fair enough. Congratulations to Warrington. I think for me locally, it's the opposite story. Scunthorpe United now relegated from the Football League, so they'll be in the National League next year. And I don't know if Doncaster have been confirmed relegated now. I don't think they won a game recently, but they're definitely in the bottom. So they are struggling a little bit. So opposite ends. Let's move on. I think Formula One is probably the best place to go to next. Yeah. A lot's happened in the season. I guess only place to start is with the best, and that is Leclerc at the moment.
Yeah. 2 wins in the 2nd place.
I think. Well, I was going to say nobody expected it, but actually you did sort of call it a little bit, didn't you?
In the first race, we tipped him up at 4-1.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to see anywhere near 4-1 for the rest of the season now.
No.
Things might change towards the end. It is a long year. Mercedes might develop again.
Yeah.
Red Bull might fix the problems. But as it stands now, you're not going to get 4-1 on Leclerc to win a race again. So yeah, it's been a quite dominant start to the season. Red Bull. They've
had a few issues. That's my next point was about to be. There's been a few issues with Red Bull. Verstappen showing his frustration quite clearly in the media.
Well, yeah, for sure. He's clearly a good driver, and he needs a car that's going to finish a race.
Yeah, I mean, he had the winning car last season, so I mean, it's only a few races in. I think a bit of patience might be a bit sort of called for at this stage.
Yeah, it's only 3 races in, and Horner has said, he'd rather fix a fast car than try and make a slow one fast. So I don't think he's panic stations yet.
No,
yeah, there's definitely some cause for concern.
Exactly. It's going to be an interesting one. Other things to note, like Aston Martin.
Yeah, they've been really poor.
Been quite disappointing over there, hasn't it?
Only team to not get a point so far, and that was down to Alex Albon's pit stop strategy.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Do you want to explain what happened then? Well,
yeah, he decided to stay out right until the end with the tyres that he had on. Obviously, you got to make the mandatory change for the tyres. So just basically a really bold move and incredible execution in the tyre management from Albon, and they managed to get a point. Williams, if they hadn't have done this, you'd be thinking that they would be looking at a 0-point season because, in my opinion, Latifi is just not a great driver.
No, he's terrible. He's so bad.
Car, they've had a lot of problems with the car, obviously, because it's sort of Mercedes side of the grid instead of the Ferrari and Red Bull. So that's where the power seems to be this year, and the Mercedes engines are sort of struggling at the moment. So it was looking really bad, but they've got a point. No one can take that away from them.
Yeah, it's not been great. But like you said, the pit strategy was interesting. A bit of a controversial week as well when we discussed with the likes of the Ferrari and the Haas team.
Yep. People calling it the white Ferrari.
Yeah, I've been seeing a few things on Twitter and online, and they're sort of not a like for like, but let's remind ourselves that Haas use Ferrari a lot.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that they just buy off them.
Yeah, I mean, legally, you're allowed to use the Ferrari engine. I think they buy a few other components off Ferrari, so that is totally legal. I think where the controversy is, and I think it was similar a few years ago with Mercedes and Aston Martin, is that they share a wind tunnel at the moment. And a lot of people, whether you call it conspiracy theorists or what, a lot of people on Twitter or on Reddit saying, well, of course, the factories are just next door to each other as well. Yeah. And what's to just stop Ferrari from conveniently leaving some notes out on a specific thing? Yeah. They'll go in the wind tunnel accidentally, don't move some notes or whatever, and the Haas team come in and do their trial and stumble upon this new way of making a component or a part. So I think a lot of people are saying that something needs to be done. Well, to stop the links being so strong. No one is saying that the links shouldn't exist. No one's saying that Haas need to make their own engine.
No, but they're saying that doesn't happen with any team, really. Yeah.
Just to make it so it's not as blatant as of a link. I think is what people are wanting.
And there's actually the three teams have investigated. Oh well, they've asked the FIA to investigate.
Three teams, and it's just,
do we know which teams?
It's not official, but you can probably guess. But that's just how F1 is. It's the last few years have shown us that realistically it's just a bitch fest. Everyone just trying to throw the other team under the bus. Oh, he's doing that. That's not fair.
Horner being one, maybe.
Well, the thing is, part of F1 and part of what I like about F1 is not so much bending the rules, but trying to get away with as much as you can.
Yeah, that's what makes it exciting as well.
And they're always going to push boundaries. So, of course, the team that is benefiting is always going to come under attack from the other teams, because if you're doing something better than everyone else and you've got this new way of doing it that they've not found out yet, of course they're going to try and get that new way from being banned instead of trying to find that newer one themselves.
Exactly.
So I think they should spend less time on trying to get other teams stopped and just try and focus on finding their new way. Yeah. Because the more innovative you get, the more advantage you get.
And this has happened a lot over the years. We've seen the likes of the Mercedes, for example, innovating new styles and designs to their car, and then Horner, or the likes of Horner anyway, would complain about it. FIA investigate, and I would say investigate fairly briefly, and then let them get on with it, essentially. That is what makes Formula One interesting, is some of the smartest minds in racing world coming together and trying to make their car better than the other. Simple as that.
I would agree for sure.
Simple as that.
I think that on Ferrari as well, it's a home Grand Prix for them.
Yes, well, we're in Italy.
Yeah.
The location's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah.
It's strange.
I played it on the F1 game. I'm a fan of it.
Yeah.
On the F1 game. Yeah. I seem to do well on it.
Weather conditions over the recent years hasn't been fantastic.
Some wet races for sure.
Some wet, some wind as well, which does play a huge part in the game. If we speak regarding sort of like Ferrari's, let's say their home ground, and people go, oh, they've an advantage essentially. Do you think it's an advantage?
Well,
like if we had a race weekend in Finland, would Bottas have an advantage?
But you see, I think a difference with that is that Ferrari is so ingrained into
Italian race,
Italian culture in general. I think you can bet your bottom dollar that it's just going to be seas of red, complete seas of red. It's going to be really good atmosphere because obviously Ferrari are the favourites at the moment.
Well, Ferrari doing well as well.
Ferrari doing well. Yeah. The whole of Italy's going to turn out and they're going to be cheering on Ferrari. It's the same with the Dutch Grand Prix and the seas of orange that you get.
Yeah.
It's always great to see that home crowd.
Definitely.
Obviously, there's no Brazilian drivers at the moment, but Brazil's just completely get behind their drivers. Well, Hamilton might be Brazilian by the time we get to
exactly.
But yeah, for me, I always like watching just pure passion, and it's just going to be pure passion. And whether it's going to be an advantage, I don't know. I don't think they need to do anything different. They just need to keep it nice and calm. But there is definitely going to be added pressure.
I was going to say the pressure could kick in, and it could make things worse. We talk about like sort of past results.
Mm-hmm.
So with this Grand Prix, it's only happened twice before.
Yeah, it's only really come about because of COVID.
Exactly, and I'm happy they brought it back.
Yeah, again, like I say, keep it for as long as you can because I can get a win on the game. So that's for me. But yeah, it's obviously the last 2 years. It comes no surprise that Hamilton's got one win and Verstappen's got another.
Yeah.
But one thing that has stood out for me is that McLaren have finished third in both races as well.
So it could be one that Norris or Lex Ricciardo could have.
Well, that's my thinking. We've put a bet up on Twitter for both of them to get podiums.
Okay.
Now the thinking behind this one is obviously they've got form. I know it's a different year, it's a different car, but they actually had quite a promising performance in Australia.
Okay.
The McLarens.
Yeah.
I know they were quite far back behind.
They were
the
a bit, yeah.
But you can still be far back behind the Ferraris and finish third.
That is true. That is very true.
So the thinking behind it, from my point of view, is we've still got some reliability problems with the Red Bulls. Obviously, the Red Bulls are faster. So if everything goes according to plan, the Red Bulls should finish ahead of the McLarens.
Yeah.
But they could quite easily DNF. And we've got the first sprint race of the season.
Yeah.
So it could completely mess things up. You know, the McLarens could qualify, 8th and 9th, for example. And then something happens in the sprint race and they could end up 3rd or 4th on the grid.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a few things that need to happen, but I think at 12 to 1 and 16 to 1 for a podium.
Is that the prices?
Yeah, prices, yeah. So I would think just a couple of quid on each of them for a bit of interest. Yeah. Who knows? But obviously you need to get it on before Friday afternoon.
Yeah, ideally, because anything could happen essentially when that comes through. For example, being if the likes of one of the Ferraris or Red Bulls have an issue or something like that, those prices are going to change drastically. If we touch quickly on the Mercedes. Do you think they have a decent chance this weekend, or do we think this could be another one of their sort of experimental races? And
well, I think that they've said that they're not quite ready for the developments to have caught up. I think their plan for the time being, while they're still trying to really push through the new developments, is just solidness, really. Yeah. I don't think they're going to try anything silly. I don't think they're going to try any weird pit stop. I think they would be quite happy with finishing 4th, 5th.
I think a top 5 finish for both drivers would be fantastic.
Exactly. I think that's what they're aiming for, just for the keeping in the hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of bonkers to think that George Russell is second in the constructors' title, in the drivers' title.
Yeah, so. I'm going to say I called this. I said he would do well. I did say he'd do well. I did think perhaps it might take him a little bit longer into the season, but it's a good job he's done well as well, because if he didn't, then they'd be in serious trouble.
That's what I mean. The Mercedes cars have finished in the points 6 out of 6.
Yeah.
Even though they're doing so terribly.
Yeah.
And I think for them to just keep in the hunt is what they're after until they can get the car sorted. So yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything stupid. Nice and solid. Try and get 3rd, 4th. They're not going to go all out for the win because they can't. Yeah. So they'd rather make sure that they're just safely chipping away at the points.
Yeah, I think it's that's definitely a fair assessment. There's also something else coming up as well with the racing weekend, is that the sprint format is back. Do you want to explain quickly how how that might change the race and essentially what it means. Because let's not forget, not everyone's an F1 expert, so not everyone understands what it.
Like I say, it's just another anomaly in terms of for the betting. Is that something could happen in that sprint race? There's only going to be 3 of them this year. And essentially, what it is you have a normal qualifying. So the typical qualifying is going to happen, and where you finish in that qualifying is going to be the grid for the sprint.
Yeah. And
the sprint is just going to be a 30-minute race, no planned pit stops, no tyre changes, and in this race is to try and create more excitement for the viewers, television, stuff like that. So it's all for the media, really.
Yeah.
And the finishing order of the sprint is then the grid for the main race on the Sunday.
Right, okay.
And you also, points-wise, you get some points for your finishing position in the sprint. So if you finish first in the sprint, you get 8 points, down to 8th, who gets 1 point.
Right.
So like I say, in terms of our bet that we've put up, if the McLaren, if they don't have an amazing qualifying, they finish 7th, 8th.
Yeah.
As long as they get through into the top 10, you don't know where they can finish in the sprint.
And when does the sprint take place?
The sprint will be on the Saturday and the race will be on the Sunday. So qualifying's Friday, sprint Saturday, and the race on Sunday.
Excellent.
So it's kind of a sort of extended action. And what they've done is they've just taken away a
and how would they decide which tracks will have the sprint?
You know what? I couldn't tell you.
No, I did a little bit of research on it, and from what I could see, it has actually nothing to do with the style of the track. Like, I think it's all based on popularity of that weekend and how big that weekend is. Obviously, this is a big one, especially with the Ferrari and stuff like that. I don't know where the other 2 will be either, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like in the Dutch one, for example, or whatever. It's an interesting format. I like it. I think it's a really good idea.
I mean, personally, I've been to Formula One a couple of times.
Yeah.
And this was a while back. This is before all the new drama. I mean, Max wasn't even around at this point.
Wasn't born.
But if you're thinking how pricey Formula One is, even for basic seats, you'd be happy.
Yeah.
You're getting 2 races basically. One is obviously shorter,
exactly,
but you get to watch a qualifying, which you would watch anyway with a ticket, and then you get to watch a half-an-hour race and a full race. So if you're committed to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're now watching a qualifying on Friday, a race on Saturday, and a race on Sunday instead of a practice Friday, just a qualifying, because qualifying can be quite boring to watch when you're in the crowd. It's great on TV when you see what's happening and whatever, but if you're making all that effort to go for an hour and your favourite driver gets knocked out in first qualifying, it's a bit of a disappointment. So at least if your favourite driver is someone at the back of the grid, for a half-hour race, you get to watch him for half an hour going around.
It could also be based on the capacity of what that place holds in terms of... Because if you've got a place that's holding 50,000 people, you might go, okay, well, let's say a larger capacity compared to other race tracks, to go, well, people might pay this price even more now if we have this sprint there. Yep. So, I guess there's probably a few different things that go into it. Predictions then, before we move on for the race weekend?
Well, I think Leclerc's going to win. If the Red Bulls are competitive, I think they'll beat Sainz. Okay. So I think if there's no DNFs, it'll probably be Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez.
Okay.
But I'm hoping there's some DNFs and I'm hoping there's some carnage in the sprint race and the McLarens can get the podium.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit differently. I'm going to say the pressure will be too much for the Ferraris. I don't like Ferrari that much, so I'm going to say Verstappen will win. I think I'm torn between picking a Mercedes because I do feel like they are going to do well. I just don't know which driver's going to do well.
Yeah.
So can I just say Mercedes second?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. In fact, no, I'll be bold. Russell second. And I like your tip. I think Norris. I'm going to go Norris for third. Yeah. I think it's interesting. It's worth the price, definitely. You get it on before Friday, and hopefully encourage more people to put the bet on as well. So, that's going to be our top 3. We will put these on Twitter. Obviously, there's one up already. Let's move on then, shall we? I think that's covered pretty much everything else. We want to touch on the NFL
Yeah.
The reason why I want to touch on the NFL, not because the season's starting, but the draft is starting, and we will go on to explain how that all works. I think it's important to let people know how much we know about NFL ourselves, and how much they should probably trust what we say. From my point of view, I've followed the NFL now probably for the past, I'd say 3 to 4-ish years.
Yeah.
A friend of mine started following it. I decided to do that too. My team's the Packers, Green Bay Packers. For those of you who don't follow the NFL and you're thinking about getting into it, honestly, the best thing to do is just to pick a team and follow them. And that was the best thing for me. I tried following without supporting anyone, and it was really hard. Whereas now, when you have a team in place, it's so much easier. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and my advice for picking a team, because I've been following the NFL for over 10 years now.
There you go.
And I made the rookie mistake of picking a West Coast team to support. And obviously with the time zone differences, they're always the latest game. So if you're going to pick a team, pick an East Coast team.
That's actually very good advice. I never thought about that.
Their home games will always be at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
Whereas
I never thought about
Seattle on the West Coast is just a disaster.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Okay, so basically, the draft's going to take place on when is it, Thursday?
Yeah, so it's a Thursday today. So next Thursday.
So next Thursday. So it'll be this podcast on the Friday. So date would be, I'm just looking at the calendar here, 28th.
Yep.
Right.
So, yeah.
The draft system is an opportunity, and please correct me if I'm wrong here. Yeah. It's an opportunity for teams to essentially improve the current squad. It gives the chance for rookies and youth players to progress into the team as well, and give them that opportunity. You probably people have probably actually seen clips of drafts and players getting the phone call and crying and going, "Oh my god!" They've got 20 family members around them, but they're not really understand what's happening.
It's quite a weird system for us Europeans who are so used to things like transfers and stuff like that. But it's sort of the bedrock of American sports.
Transfers still take place. But
it's not in terms of cash, the trades.
So a transfer is in they transfer something for something else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But so basically, the people who argue strongly in favour of the draft say that there's two real strong benefits of the draft, which realistically I don't think there's that much of a counter argument for. The first one is that you have to go through college before you can even enroll in the draft. So you have to have done 3 years worth of college courses in America before you're even eligible. So the youngest you can be in the draft is going to be 21. And what the people say is that this is saying, well, it's giving them a fallback.
Yeah.
If they don't make it in the NFL, well, they've got a university degree, which is something that is quite a big problem in UK sports.
Yeah,
because a footballer who is so set on it and gets released at 17, well, he's put everything into football. What it's got, and the second one is that it lets their bodies mature because the physicality of the NFL is mad.
Yeah,
and if you had real generational talent at 17, 18, so many of the teams are so desperate to win that they could easily just chuck an 18-year-old in, and he's going to be running up against 300 pounds, 6'6", complete monsters. So, in my opinion, it is a good idea. That it lets the bodies mature. They get an education. That's the first benefit of the draft.
Yeah.
And like I say, in the UK specifically, it is a big problem when footballers get released at 17 and they have no other life skills other than football.
Exactly.
And then the second one, which is the main point of the draft, is that it's supposed to make it competitive for everyone.
Yeah.
So if you finish last, you get to pick first.
Exactly.
And essentially it means that you then get the best player of that year's crop.
And then it allows teams to even themselves out a little bit and make it more interesting. I think we should let's really break it down. I think let's try and make it sound as basic as possible. So first of all, I think my question would be, how does a young American footballer get himself to be an option in the draft?
Well, everyone's heard of college football. whether you follow it that much is a different thing. I'm not a massive college football fan. I know the main teams and I know how the system works. But essentially, the university that you would play for. So say me and you were a 15-year-old high school player who is really good at football, American football. Yeah. What happens is then that the universities would try and get you. And it doesn't matter what course you'd do. Mm-hmm. So you could do there was I think it was an ESPN report where there was like a load of them doing like Somalian studies. Just complete fad courses. That's stopped now. Wow. But yeah, they were just getting them in and being like, oh yeah, you'll do this course. And what you wanted to do is you wanted to go and play for one of the powerhouses of the college football. Yeah. So the powerhouses are usually the teams that don't have, the states that don't have an NFL team. So you think of Alabama is one of the biggest because Alabama don't have an NFL team. Right. Okay. So if you wanted to go and watch NFL in Alabama, the closest you could get is watching college football. So they are huge. Some of these teams get 100,000 fans just to watch college football. And then if you say you stay there for 4 years and you have 4 years career as a college football player and you rack up all the stats, then everyone takes notice of you and you'll be like, oh, this guy's coming from Alabama. Yeah. And he's done really well. Yeah. And then that's when the hype gets around you, the draft comes up, you're eligible that year, you put yourself in the draft, and then everyone's like, oh, this guy is going to be... So like last year, for example, the number one pick was this guy, Trevor Lawrence, who was quarterback for Clemson. Right. And everyone was so impressed with him right from high school. Like even when he hadn't even played a game for Clemson, everyone was like, this guy's going to be number one pick in the draft when it comes around. Wow. So the hype probably built him up, people. Yeah, of course. So that's how you would get into the draft. And is there is there like a certain number of players, like a maximum number, or is it just like unlimited amount of players that could be? Yeah, unlimited. Whether you get picked is completely different. But there's 7 rounds. Yeah, so I think so. There's 7 rounds. Each team basically takes a turn in picking. Mm-hmm. How in advance would a team know who they want? Like, I mean, let's say for example, we have our own team, and we have a list of players, and we go, right, I want my first pick to be this guy. Yeah. Well, like I say, it differs depending on the players. So I love listening to American football podcasts, watching daily football shows and stuff like that. So, but the general consensus is this year's draft is pretty weak. Right. So the number one pick this year isn't as valuable as in some other years. Right. Okay. So for example, last year, like I've mentioned with Trevor Lawrence, everyone would have wanted him. Whoever was picking first would have picked him. Yeah. So the Jaguars, they were the ones who finished bottom, and they've been quite a poor team for ages. Right. So obviously they would never say it publicly. Yeah. But a lot of people kind of felt that they wanted to finish last, so that they knew that it doesn't matter if you finish last this year, we're going to have Trevor Lawrence for ages. So you can kind of tank. Do you reckon there will be some form of tactics in that? Like if you're coming towards the end of the season, you think, right, if we lose our next 2 games, we'll be last. Possibly. There's always arguments made for it, but the thing is, so many of these players just want to win, and so many of the coaches want to win, and so many fan bases just wouldn't accept a tanking season. Yeah. For example, I'm a Seahawks fan, and our off-season so far has been pretty poor. Right. And people have sort of written off the season, which you can understand, but you still want to win. Not for sure, so, definitely. There's people on the Reddit and people on the forums saying, oh yeah, well, we've got a better chance of tanking if we play this guy or whatever. And obviously next year's draft is supposed to be a strong class. Exactly. There's supposed to be some good quarterbacks coming through. So it would be advantageous to have a strong pick next year, but you want to win all the time. So I don't think tanking is as big as people like to think it is. I think it's more of a sort of tinfoil hat sort of way of thinking. That's fair enough. But it's definitely happened in the past, obviously. Yeah, definitely. And then if we talk about the actual draft itself, so when it's happening, this is like we were talking about. This is a show. Oh yeah. Like this is on TV. Like this is a proper show. It got 55 million viewers the first 2 rounds. Exactly, it's crazy. So and teams are on the clock. Yep. Essentially, so they have how long to pick? So it's 10 minutes. Yeah. On the clock is like a well-known phrase now, and then basically you get 10 minutes to pick. Quite often for the first few rounds, you sort of have like not superstars, coming out to say the pick, but sort of like ex-players.
Oh, right, okay.
So
like legends of the game.
Of your club. So if you had like the Jaguars first round pick, they would have an old Jaguar who is really popular with their fan base, and he'll go with the first pick of the 2022 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars pick, whatever. And then, but it's quite interesting because they have, like you were saying, you'll have seen clips. They have like a green room with some of the players who are expecting to get picked.
Oh,
their
right,
families with them. They're like videoing their reaction.
Yeah, because sometimes they're at home as well.
Yeah, quite often they're at home, and they'll ring them up and stuff like that. And you can see the general manager's office.
I always see that. I always see like they have the phone call, and then they ring him up and it's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks, coach, whatever." And he's like, "How would you like to be a Green Bay Packer next season?" He's like, "Oh, that'd be amazing." I'd love it one day if they just like they just rang him up for no reason, so we just ring to see if you're all right, basically. Like, yeah, we're not offering you a contract or anything like that. Like, just as like a prank, like I think
it's totally brutal.
It would be funny. Moving on, we talk about on the clock. It must be fairly difficult for the team who, let's say, wins a Super Bowl, have the last pick.
Yep.
Because you've got a list of these players, and they're just going to get rattled off. Well, and then it's like, right, our first 5 picks have been taken. Like, there's a quarterback left. There's this guy left. Like, you have to think about who's more valuable.
That's why some of the general managers get paid so much money. But the thing is, with teams that win the Super Bowl, quite often what they've done, as you were saying before about the trades, is that they've sort of given up future draft picks for a sort of win at all costs now mentality. So what a lot of the teams who are sort of picking like 28th to 32nd anyway are doing, they've not really got many picks.
Yeah.
So say, for example, you wanted to get a really good veteran in because you thought this guy is the guy that's going to make the difference for us. We're almost there, but we need to get this guy. So you give up a first-round pick for next season's draft and a third-round pick in next season's draft to whoever you're getting that player from.
Yeah.
Then it means you're only picking like 5 players in this year's draft.
This is the other thing, because this is another thing we have to explain as well. Is that so if you have first pick, you could actually trade that pick for a player. My question is, how valuable is a first-round pick? Like, what's that worth?
Well, again, this is a weak draft class.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, from the Green Bay Packers side, I saw Adams had left, and there'd been an exchange for a pick in the draft for that. There was another player as well, same thing, where it happens. And it's hard to put a number on it, really. But then you also have to think, from the coaching aspect, is like, all right, fair enough, we're losing this player, but we have second pick, and look at the guys we could get, you know?
Well, there's quite a lot of different sort of thought avenues in that. Me personally, I think it's more risky to accept the picks or want the picks, right? Because it's still a complete lottery.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady went in a late round. Russell Wilson, another Hall of Famer, he went in a late round. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're the number 1 pick, you're going to be a superstar.
Yeah.
You might be the best player at that current time with the best potential, but you might never realise your potential.
Yeah.
So for me, if I was putting value on it, I would want the player more than the pick all the time. So if you had for example, like a wide receiver that you really wanted, right, and your team needed a wide receiver, and you had like a decent number in the first round, usually it would probably get accepted if that player was pushing for a move. Right. So if there was a superstar wide receiver and he wanted to move, and you had the first round pick, you could probably go, right, here's a first round pick and a third round pick, right, and we'll take that player. And for me, there's less risk because you know that player's already good and he's already doing things in the league. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's a mind games, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a strange one. Okay, so we spoke about being on the clock. There's something else as well, which is the NFL Combine.
Yep.
This is sort of like a test, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a scouting day.
Exactly.
It's like basically you can hold in-person like interviews if you're a team manager or you're a head coach and you were considering this guy, but you wanted to know a bit more about maybe his personality, or how you think he might fit in terms of this or that. You also get to see them do some of the practical activities.
Yeah, there's some famous ones that go quite viral. Like you've got like the 40-yard dash.
40-yard dash.
Is it 220?
Yeah, bench press.
Or is it 225 or something like that? I think it is. Vertical jumps, broad jumps, and the 3-cone drill. I mean, you see some big guys who are doing a 40-yard dash in a ridiculous time.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the athleticism on these guys is bonkers. But they do a lot more than this.
No, for sure.
Because obviously, like, you need to know everything about them. So one of my favourite players at the Seahawks at the moment is a guy called DK Metcalf. I don't know if
yeah.
And when he was going on the combine, it came out there was a stat that no one really believed, and you still don't know whether it's true or not because it was never official. But it was stuff like his body fat percentage was like 4%, and they do all these different tests on all these players because it's so important that they get it right that they just put loads of money and effort into getting it right.
Yeah, I think pretty much covers most things about the draft. I mean, one question that people want to know is, can you bet on the draft?
Yep. It's becoming a bigger and bigger thing as well. You know, a few years ago you could only really pick on like who was going to go first,
right?
You know, who was going to be the first overall pick. But now you can get everything. You can get like over/under wide receivers taken in the first round. Whether this player is going to go higher than the fifth pick or lower than the fifth pick. So, like I say, I'm mad into my NFL.
Is there money to be made from it, you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm going to put some bets up on Twitter on Wednesday.
Excellent.
And then I'm also going to look at the odds before the draft for outright, you know, Super Bowl, divisional, team wins, and then I'm going to see how the draft goes and then compare the odds afterwards. So the week after the draft, I'll put a video up on YouTube explaining how the draft has changed the odds for the outright Super Bowl.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That pretty much covers everything else really about the NFL draft. I'm really looking forward to the season. I will be watching the draft 100%. And hopefully that gives everyone a little bit of information in terms of how it works. We have sort of one more topic really now to cover before we wrap up. Fight night this weekend. We have Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. I tipped Dillian Whyte about, 6 years ago maybe, and I said that one day he will be a world champion. Opportunity has come about a few times for him, really, but hasn't always been able to sort of produce when he's needed to. Lost to like Anthony Joshua, which I think some people probably thought he had a chance of winning. He lost a couple of other fights. It's going to be an interesting fight. We've got two completely different style boxers. Fury obviously coming off a big high from his Wilder trilogy, and probably more fighting experience over the last few years as well. We have no idea how much training obviously White's put in. I'm sure he's been in the gym every day. It's going to be an interesting fight.
Quite simply put, I think Tyson Fury is going to win. I think it's going to go the distance. So I would have Fury on points, and probably, if you can find it out there, unanimous as well. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think
Statistically, White hasn't actually lasted that long in most of his main fights, and he's had some fights against some pretty poor people, which he's probably just knocked out in like the first 5 to 6 rounds. He's had fights with Chisora where he should have won that fight a lot sooner than when he did. Ended up being a big knockout late on. Chisora's a bit old now, so probably went in White's favour a little bit there. I think Fury has the knockout power to knock White down. Not necessarily knock him out. I mean, when we talk knockout, it's not someone who's just clean on the floor. I mean, we're talking people who've just been counted out, for example. However, we have seen Fury being knocked from the likes of Dillian Whyte, of Wilder, for example. And, you know, Dillian Whyte's a big hitter. And if he ever feels like he's under pressure or against the corner, he will swing. And I think that's probably going to happen a lot in this fight.
I just think he's so much bigger than Wilder. You know, I think he's going to be able to just completely dictate it in the way. He's such a better showman as well. I think mentally he's going to be better prepared for the fight. There's 90,000 people there,
It's crazy.
And that is not going to phase Fury in the slightest. In fact, it's going to, in my opinion, it's going to make him even more like, well, hey, here we go. Like, he's going to absolutely love having 90,000. And let's be honest, he's a really popular guy as well.
Yeah.
The majority of that crowd is going to be wanting Fury to win and then serenade him with some stupid love song or whatever. Yeah. And so I just can't see him losing. I really can't.
Yeah. I think, I see White knocking Fury down.
Okay.
But I think realistically, I think Fury will probably win. I think a Fury win with a Fury to be knocked down is an interesting combo. Just betting terms there. Fury on points probably been the favourite outcome, I'd imagine. Mm-hmm. Again, we will put all of these on Twitter so everyone can take a look at it. On the undercard, there is also Tommy Fury. He'll be fighting someone that no one's ever heard of, most likely.
Sounds about right for him.
Exactly, and probably calling out the likes of Jake Paul afterwards as well, I'd imagine. I wouldn't even be surprised to see Jake Paul there, actually.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah. I'll have to keep an eye on Twitter and Reddit to see if he's been spotted. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really good fight. It's always nice to see, isn't it? Like having sort of two British boxers headline a show like this. Yeah. It's nice to know that we have British champions as well. I feel for Dillian Whyte in the sense that I would like to see him hold a belt one day in his life. As a boxer, it must be so difficult to just have that lifestyle.
Continually going on knowing that you're never going to be world champion.
It's not easy, and if he wants it, he has to fight the best. He has to beat the best, and at the moment, Tyson Fury is the best.
Yeah.
Simple as that. There is another fight coming up, obviously, which is Joshua Usyk as well. I don't think a date's been confirmed yet, but that will be definitely something that we'll touch up on closer to the time. Obviously, Usyk just coming back from essentially a world war and then going back into the gym. Anthony Joshua had a bit of time out now from his loss. He'll be wanting to get those belts back, definitely. I think it's going to be an interesting few months now, especially this year as well, even for boxing and boxing fans in general. So looking forward to that. Podcast next week. Yeah. Again, haven't really decided on a topic, have we? We've got a bit of horse racing.
Yeah, there's the Guinness Festival. Yeah.
We'll touch up on obviously everything that's happened as well, like with the F1 weekend, football as well. We've got Premier League's hotting up.
You're back to England next week, I think.
I am. I'm going back to the motherland and visiting a few people over there. So, but we'll still get a podcast out. Don't worry. All our tips, everything like that, will be on Twitter. Please subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Leave a comment as well if you want. If you have any bets that came in from some of our tips as well, send them in, and we'll take a look at them for sure. Been a pleasure.
Yep.
As always. I'm getting a bit hungry now, so I'm going to go and eat.
Excellent.
All right. Catch you guys later. See ya.